Hello, and thank you for joining. I'm Grace, Communications Coordinator at Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovations, and welcome to Greenlight, where we dig into sustainability in Ann Arbor with the residents who are envisioning, creating, and establishing a sustainable and equitable future for our community. Supporting these goals and presenting this series is A20, the city's plan, framework, vision, and associated actions for creating and implementing a just transition to carbon neutrality community-wide by the year 2030. Today, we're shining the green light on Michelle Bennett, City Planner at the City of Ann Arbor, and Dr. Missy Stults, Director of Sustainability and Innovations at the City of Ann Arbor, to talk about the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. Thank you both for joining.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us, Grace.
Absolutely. So to start us off, give us the elevator pitch of who you are and what you do. Michelle, we'll start with you.
My name's Michelle Bennett. I've been a planner for about a decade now. I moved here to go to the University of Michigan to get my master's in urban and regional planning. And I've been at the city about 3 years, and about the last year of which I've been working on the Comprehensive Land Use Plan.
Missy?
Hi, Grace. It's good to see you.
Good
It's been
to see
about
you
an hour. My name is Missy. I'm the Sustainability and Innovations Director for the City of Ann Arbor, where it is our responsibility and everyone in the cities to implement A20 and achieve our audacious, beautiful, aggressive, and scientifically necessary goals.
That's great. Great summary. To start us off, give us an overview of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. How is it formulated? How is it being worked on now? And then what comes next?
So I'm going to start with 2009. That was when our last land use element was adopted. So it's definitely time for an update. The world is much different now than it was then. And we had started, I believe, around the beginning of COVID to issue an RFP that got delayed. So we did not start this new version until about 2023. That's when the project launched. We had a steering committee that was made up of individuals from the community that applied. They were kind of the overseers of this process, like a sounding board of different perspectives from different neighborhoods. And then our planning commission, who is statutorily, they are the group that is in charge of this plan. They formed a subcommittee, and they were meeting also on a regular basis. And so they spent a year and a half or so engaging the community, working through all of the data, everyone's different perspectives, reconciling that. We issued the first draft in April. We just finished last week reviewing the second draft with the Planning Commission. So we are now moving on to our third draft that we are hoping to have by the first meeting in October with the Planning Commission. And from there we would be starting, ideally, we'd be starting the process that's laid out in the state statute, which is the Planning Commission would forward it to the City Council. City Council then has to approve it for a 63-day review period. And then at the end of that, we would have 2 different public hearings through the Planning Commission and City Council before it can get adopted. And that's scheduled for early 2026.
Wow, so this is a lengthy process.
Indeed.
Thank you for describing all of that. I know there are a lot of factors that go into this massive, massive plan, but tell me about how sustainability factors into the plan.
Yeah, that was right from the start. So City Council issued some directives for us to guide this plan, and one of them was you must align with our carbon neutrality plan. So from the start, in any way that we can, which is primarily land use, that's the central component of the plan, we are trying to align with all of OSI's goals and strategies. So on top of that, we have met with the Sustainability Commission, formerly the Environmental Commission. Missy and her team have read through both drafts and provided us their feedback, so that's being incorporated as we go through. And there are several topics I think we'll get into where we do try to align as much as possible our land use, transportation, environmental protections with the larger sustainability goals.
Yeah, Missy, do you have anything you want to add?
Sure, I'll offer that folks may not know, but in A20 in our first draft, we actually had land use strategies that are very much aligned with what are now in the comprehensive land use plan draft before the public and planning commission for consideration. So we started this conversation a long time ago because land use is in fact a sustainability strategy, and it is contentious and it is very visceral and personal and critical. So I'm very excited and honestly honored that if you look at our comprehensive land use plan, sustainability really does permeate throughout that document.
There's some points I wanted to pull out from the plan that relate to sustainability. First, can you describe how greater density aligns with sustainability?
Yeah,
Missy,
absolutely.
Michelle?
I'll start if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think this is a really contentious point. I think that what we've heard a lot from the public is they're concerned that density is like sort of equals a degradation of our natural features, right? If we're trying to fit more people in this city, that means that we might have to cut down more trees or build in more like environmentally sensitive areas. That is not our goal. We can talk more about that. But density in and of itself really matters on your perspective, right? So from a regional perspective, we feel that density is a huge component of this plan because we have about 80,000 commuters who come into the city daily.
Wow, that's a big number.
It's huge. And we know not every single one of them want to live in Ann Arbor, but we do know that some of them would like to. And so we can use our land more efficiently to house these people, workers who often work at our biggest employers in the city. And by doing so, we give them more options when they live here, right? So like Ann Arbor has a fantastic bus system. We're building a bike network. We have sidewalks. If we made space for people that were commuting here, then we give them more opportunity to reduce their vehicle miles traveled, which is a huge component of our carbon neutrality plan. And on top of that, if we have new development, often they meet higher standards for efficiency and they just might meet your lifestyle better, right? There's more options for you if, say, you are empty nesters or say you are single or couple, that you don't have a family and don't necessarily need a larger home, that there's more options for you that are more energy efficient, that are more accommodating of you, and frankly, just less land to manage, right? Like mowing, fertilizer, all of those things have sustainability impacts. So yeah, we feel like bringing people into Ann Arbor and providing more options is at a larger scale a more sustainable option.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, in particular, I would say we want people to be able to live, work, recreate, shop, have fun closer to where they are. It's kind of all in proximity to each other. And so density helps us do that. I mean, I think about this, we sort of joke in my household. I think about this as like an Argus test. Can I get somewhere in walking or scooting distance to get fresh produce? My daughter thinks about this
you mean
as an
Argus
ice cream.
Farm Stop?
Yeah, like Argus Farm Stop, right? My daughter thinks about it as an ice cream test. Can she walk, bike, or scoot somewhere to get ice cream, right? And so having mixed use, but things that are next to us mean that we can actually have a higher quality of life. And Ann Arbor's a great place. I think most of us know this intimately. Also, cat's out of the bag that Ann Arbor's a great place and people want to live here. And so people are going to come to this community and the surrounding areas, and we want to be a welcoming place for them, and we want to take care of our existing residents. So density is not a dirty word. Density is actually an environmental word. It is something we have to think about with purpose and intentionality, which, to Michelle's point, is something we are doing. We're looking at parcels of land that make sense to densify, areas that make sense to preserve. So there's a balance here, and there isn't perfection, but there is better, and we are constantly moving towards better.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate the optimism and love that you have for the city that is shining through the things that you are saying. My next question is, how does the city currently protect its natural features, and how will that change?
So there is a 2004 natural features plan that a lot of those goals and strategies have already been incorporated into our zoning ordinance. So which is called the UDC, so I'll use that as shorthand. And so we have 7 protected natural features, many of which exceed the state standards. And so in our current comprehensive draft, we want to maintain those. And I'm not sure that that has been clear, but we definitely want to maintain our standards. I think some people would like us to go much further because these natural features are protected through site plan process, meaning larger developments have to go through an extensive review process. But there are many things that don't. So single families, duplexes, anything up to 4 units doesn't go through the site plan process. So I think there's a lot of concern that in their neighborhoods, maybe they'll lose tree canopy. And so we hear that. We do feel like there has to be some sort of balance, right? We are a city, we do need to develop, there is a housing crisis, we do also want to protect our natural features, so it's a constant trade-off that we are always talking about. But I do want to make clear that our natural features do have protections already. And then on top of that, I mean, OSI does a ton of great things with that. You've given away, is it over 11,000 trees? We've been working with the Parks Department, who has 30 years of data, have found that biodiversity is increasing in our parks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're doing incredible work. And our urban forestry team is, updating their plan, and they have benchmarks and goals for increasing our tree canopy, all of which we completely support in the plan.
That sounded like a big number, 11,000 trees.
Something like that.
I know,
right?
there's
Missy,
like a
tell me about
program or
this.
initiative we have. Yeah, Grace, thanks for the softball. Our office has an initiative called the 10,000 Trees Initiative. We've obviously passed that, but we give away free saplings for folks to be able to plant and care for. And I'm delighted to share, and I imagine Sean Reynolds might be on Greenlight soon to talk about this. We also won a grant to help people care for trees on private property.
Wow.
So this is a situation where sometimes trees, you love your tree, but it's expensive to prune it, or maybe medically you can't. There just may be an accessibility challenge. And so we want to help people care for those trees and preserve where we can. And it is also true that not every tree is created equal. We do have invasive species that are making their way into our region, and so we have efforts like our pollinator-aware yard care, native tree plantings. We're even exploring a nursery for the region, which has native trees that we could be planting to help address some of the shifts that are happening due to climate change.
Yeah.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good point. When we met with some stakeholders, we did a focus group with experts, environmentalists, who also share that, like, not every tree is equal, right? We have dead, diseased, or invasive species. And so in the plan, there's a big focus on prioritizing environmentally sensitive areas that provide ecological benefit. Yeah, that we want to prioritize areas that have an ecological benefit.
Okay. Thank you. Why is the city proposing to increase building heights if it could interfere with a neighbor's investment in solar?
Yes, good question. And I think that this has generally been resolved. So in April, Council passed a resolution that said in our proposed land use category of residential that we cap heights at 3 stories. I know to some that already feels too high if you live in a 1-story ranch, but that is in keeping with what our current code says. So our current code allows in any residential up to 3 stories. So we're actually keeping that the same. I understand that there could still be some impact if you were on a 1-story next door. But we have removed any of the conversation you may have heard about increasing up to 48 feet in residential. So that has been removed. It's capped at 3 stories. That didn't solve this problem though, which was like our transition land use category. If you look at that, generally aligns with our corridors where we are trying to plan for density along the rides 2045 routes where they would like to increase service. So that would have taller buildings, and those could be adjacent to residential. And so that still has that conflict. What we've been discussing about a lot and what we have decided upon in the second draft is that anything in a transition area, if it abuts residential, it would have to taper down in heights to meet the surrounding heights. And where it got closer to our denser areas like Hub or downtown, that those heights could be taller. So it's a very dynamic area, the transition, but it is meant to have self regulating heights depending on what it's next to try to mitigate any of these shadows being cast on roofs where people have made investments, especially for solar, which is something we want to support.
We did a study with the University of Michigan, an analysis perhaps is a better term, when we were at a 4-story limit. And we looked at this question from the perspective of not an individual household, because those are private property rights. And as Michelle just said, zoning already allows someone to build to a 3-story. That's allowable, right?
Yeah.
So what we looked at is, would an increase of an additional story impact, and how would it impact solar potential? So we took 2 lots, we did the minimum setback possible, put houses right beside each other, and we looked for the perspective of the sustainable energy utility to understand impact. And the answer is almost none.
Oh, wow.
So this was an issue that really wasn't an issue across the board. And so we both put that to bed scientifically, but also there was a policy shift to ameliorate it from that side as well.
That's cool. Thank you for both of those perspectives, kind of shedding light on the whole issue. That was really helpful. The city is starting a circularity plan. How does the comprehensive land use plan relate to this effort, Missy?
Absolutely. So what we're doing, just to clarify, we've already done a bunch of engagement with residents about what individuals are looking for in terms of moving towards a more circular economy. And what that fundamentally means is, how do we not just take, use, throw away? How do we keep things in circulation so that this wonderful mug, when it's no longer my mug, can actually be reconstituted as many different things, or kept as a mug, but Michelle now has it and is giving useful life to it. So there's many different ways this could look. So we've done a resident engagement. We have a lot of strategy there and ideas. We're now working with businesses to understand what they need, both from an economic development opportunity, really growing local business, keeping things within our local economy, and also as businesses, they have different supply chains and material needs, right? So that's about to kick off. So when we think about circularity, there are a number of initiatives that we have, and I want to thank our planning department because we brought these forward, and we are really, really focused on housing. That makes sense. We often say in our office we have a climate crisis and we have an affordable housing crisis. We need to solve those two. They are not in conflict. They are in conflict if we put them in conflict, right? This is challenging, but so is everything we do. So put on your big kid pants and we get to work, right? Okay, so thinking about housing, great, wonderful. We also do have some bigger uses that they're not industrial, but they're sort of large commercial. Think about washing stations as we're trying to move to a reusable container program for the whole city. So University of Michigan, Ann Arbor Public Schools, local restaurants, our grocery stores. What if, instead of single-use plastics, they had a returnable program? Well, we gotta clean that, right? You've got to have a place where trucks can come in and out, drop those off, you have large washing, and then you get them back out in circulation. And that's gonna have to run almost 24 hours a day, right?
And something that will have to stay local.
Exactly. Yeah, we do not want to outsource sustainability. At least I do not want to outsource sustainability in our community. So keeping it local really matters. So we need to have uses that allow us to be able to do things like this, or repair clinics, or storing materials for a swap day when we do this at bigger scales. How do we work with our libraries to store materials while people they don't need them for the seasonal perspective and they need them next season. So we need space that allows us to have these circular uses, and oftentimes people don't want to live right next to those spaces.
Yeah.
So either we fix people or we have some land use that allows that to take place.
And OSI has been super inclusive of planning in this particular circularity plan. They've included us in the steering committee to help pick the people that will co-write this plan with the city. So I will continue to be a person who's very involved in the circularity plan and bringing that back to the planning department to make sure that our land use policy in the future allows for these uses, makes space with these uses. And in fact, I can even see pulling in our new economic development director to help with that. We actually have capacity now to seek out businesses and bring them here because we have a full-time person now who can help us meet these goals.
How does or doesn't the enforcement of efficient building materials fit into the plan?
And this is my understanding of how building materials work in relation to planning. The state's building code cannot be superseded by cities. That is something that is adopted at a state level and that we have to follow.
So when you say superseded, define that a little
that
bit
we
for me.
cannot impose greater restrictions than the state's building code. We can't alter from it at all.
We can't go lower, we can't go above.
We can't
It is
alter.
the code.
Wow.
For traditional developments, by right, allowed to happen.
Yeah. So last I checked on that, the state had adopted a new one, but are being sued by home builders, and there's going to be an entire lawsuit there.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole other thing. So that does put us a little bit in limbo, because sometimes you do want your land use policy to align with building code. So in this case, I think this is a case of the city of Ann Arbor being or wanting to be more progressive than the state and feeling a little held back in this way. So our best tools, our best options are to try to incentivize better materials. So when a developer comes through the site plan process, OSI is a part of that. They help review it. We can make suggestions. We have some incentives in our UDC, like giving bonuses if you like getting height bonuses, for example, if you were to meet certain sustainability criteria. As far as I understand, that is the best that we can do, and we try to pull every lever that we can to get that done.
Yeah.
And so our plan continues to support that effort. I think we also might need to be sending some resources to the state level to lobby for these kinds of things, just as with housing legislation that we'd like to see passed. But in general, we want to continue working with OSI to make sure that our buildings are as energy efficient as possible within our constraints.
I see.
Yeah.
OSI has been heavily involved in the building code. So we testified, we submitted evidence,
Awesome.
We continue to push for it. We want the updated code. We are monitoring what's happening with the home builders, seeing what levers we could possibly pull. We are trying to even innovate and think if there's other ways we could maybe test a more advanced code, because there's a lot of misinformation in circulation, and we find the best way to address that is to go right at it and say, okay, you're concerned about this, let's test this. Let's find out, because maybe it's true and maybe it's not. Or maybe the truth is somewhere in between these extremes. So we're exploring a few options, and I know I'm being vague there because none of them have yet gotten traction. In addition, we've been working with solid waste on what do we do when we decommission buildings. So there's a lot of material that comes out. How do we keep that in productive use so it doesn't just go to a landfill as well? So that's another side of the equation. And then we are working with other partners in the ecosystem, including folks like DTE, to think about how can we incentivize more sustainable buildings coming in, because Michelle's right. Really, incentives for by right development is the only game in town. Now, when they want alterations, we do actually do, I think, a really nice job at the city of asking for more sustainability features and housing features or other things that are our values.
I think this touches on a concern that I've heard from residents, is that when we are hoping to enable more density, that this is going to accelerate developers coming into neighborhoods and tearing down homes. And there's a concern that these are going to end up in landfills and that this is not the most sustainable option.
Yeah.
And so I'm aware of that, I hear that, and I think this is an opportunity where we can work together to figure out, like, how do we get a reuse center here so that we can encourage people to take demolished, or keep them as intact as possible when you demolish a home, and have somewhere to bring it so that it could be reused later in the city, or even coming up with some sort of ordinance that puts parameters on that. I think that is definitely an area where we could do better.
Yeah, and it seems like it's something that's being explored and those threads are being followed.
Well, as someone who's a homeowner in Ann Arbor, I will say I don't want as much grass as we have, right? We're slowly taking out grass and we're planting fruit trees, right, that we harvest, and we have all kinds of popsicles from the summer because our fruit, we just turned into popsicles after we were totally full of it. It's very good. I'll bring it in.
That's awesome.
That's great. But we have a lot of space that is not at its highest use, right?
Yeah.
It's not pollinator habitat. It's not growing food. That could be housing, and we're not taking out trees. We're not destroying high quality ecosystems. So when people jump to, you're going to raise my neighborhood, cut it all down. No, we're actually talking primarily about infill, smart development, right? And we would all benefit from that, whether that's a mother-in-law suite, an ADU, a new housing unit, a small commercial bakery. I love me baking. I'm not going to do that though, Grace. But nonetheless, there are other options here. Yes. It's not just the extremes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do not consider sod high ecological benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where do resilience hubs fit into this vision of Ann Arbor's future, Missy?
Yeah, resilience hubs are in the plan. You'll actually see them called out. In A20, we have a goal of a resilience hub, at least one in each ward. We are well on our way. We're working on number 3 and number 4 right now and kind of eyeing where number 5 might be. But if you read the draft comprehensive land use plan, they're referenced. And more than that, we also talk about not just physical infrastructure of a resilience hub, but the social infrastructure of how we help neighbors get to know neighbors and build quality of life and social resilience for when, not if, when things do happen.
Yeah.
So that's been a strong partnership as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed that. We support that effort. We've mapped them. We've showed where the ones that are existing, where they're proposed, that's in our plan so that we can provide any support, especially on the social side, because I think physically they'll probably be built on already public land, right? So they don't have to go through an extensive zoning process, right? Like strategically picking land that we know we can already develop on. But yeah, the social side of it is if you're in the face of a huge crisis, maybe you have somewhere physically to go, but it would also be nice to know your neighbors and feel comfortable providing aid to each other or providing information to each other so that you can weather the storm together.
You know, Grace, one of the things was September is National Preparedness Month.
Yes.
And one of the things that would be great to talk about is the work that one of our ambassador projects is focusing on, which is creating neighborhood block party kits. Because one of the most fundamental things is getting to know your neighbors means you can know things like neighbor X is on a medical device. So if the power goes out and you've got a generator, I hope not, you have a battery, thank you for getting a battery. You've got a battery, you can help them power that device. Or someone has a gap after school where they could really use help looking after someone, right? You build these relationships and then your neighborhood is just stronger every day, including
Not
during
just
times
in
of
crisis.
disruption. That's right.
Correct.
Yeah, so maybe we could have Bryce talk a little bit about some of the resilience work he's advancing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, my last question before we go, what do you want to leave our audience with about the comprehensive land use plan? I know that's a big question.
I would love to just invite our residents to continue sharing with us their perspective, but to please understand, we are planning to 2050. There's a lot of uncertainty over the next 25 years, and we are trying to reconcile a lot of divergent opinions and perspectives, and so we are focusing on our core values, which is to be a city that is affordable, sustainable, equitable, and dynamic. Because regardless of how we get there, those are goals that we can all agree to. And so the how we get there and the by what time we get there is really something we're still working out. And so please be patient with us and understand that we are trying our very best.
Yeah, and I liked your emphasis on dynamics. Something that you said to me when we talked about this before was that this is a plan, a framework, and I think dynamic captures the vibrancy and the fluidity of the people of Ann Arbor and Ann Arbor as a city.
Absolutely, and that came to us from the public. We started with just 3 core values: affordable, sustainable, equitable. But the residents who attended our engagement sessions were telling us that doesn't quite capture like place. A place that's dynamic means it's ever evolving, that it's vibrant, that we expect it to change over time, and that's part of the reason we love it. So that did come to us from the public and has been added to the plan.
Missy, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Sure, thanks, Grace. I think using dynamic as a jumping point makes a lot of sense because if you look back, certainly 2009, but much further back in our land use planning, the way we thought about sustainability really has evolved significantly from that time to today, where for some people, density may have been something you would have thought was counter to sustainability. And today we know it's actually pretty centered in that work. And so I want to offer gratitude to our planning team, to our public, the thousands of Ann Arborites who have given us feedback into this plan. And if you haven't yet, it's true, we want to hear from you. But also, thousands of people have. This isn't a plan that has 2 folks' voices kind of permeate throughout. This is a plan of our community for our community. And I'm excited about where the future goes. And I want to just end sort of where I started by saying thank you, Michelle, Brett, and everyone else in the planning department, because sustainability really does permeate this plan in a way that is truly inspiring, at least for me, as I look back to where we were 7 years ago before I started at the city to where we are today. The city has really stepped into sustainability in a beautiful way, and
Thank you
did that.
for acknowledging that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Of course. Appreciate it.
Thank you both for joining, and thank you, as you said, for carrying this and for working on something that is so large and captures so many residents' feelings. People have so many feelings because they love Ann Arbor.
Take care.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being here and for the work that you do.
You too, Grace.
you.
Thanks.
You can learn more about the Comprehensive Land Use Plan at a2gov.org/planning and more about A20 by visiting a20.org. Have a question you want to ask to a sustainability expert in the city of Ann Arbor or a story you'd like to share? Let us know at sustainability@a2gov.org. This has been Greenlight. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.